Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the East Riding of Yorkshire series. Together with the unparished city of Hull, it forms the county of the same name. There's 172 parishes here. Which one are we in today? Welcome back to the East Riding of Yorkshire once again, and myself and Nikki are beginning this one on what you might think is an urban side street. This is actually a town, but it feels a little bit more like a village than it should, and the reason for that is because it's right on the coast. There's going to be some cracking views of the North Sea in this place. Today we're in Withernsea. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Withernsea is a town and a seaside resort on the Holderness Coast of the East Riding of Yorkshire, and it forms the focal point for a wider community of smaller villages. Some we've already seen. It's a typical seaside town with some nice beaches and plenty of amusement arcades. It's even got the traditional flock of seagulls waiting to nick your fish and chips on the seafront. Its most famous landmark is its lighthouse, which is no longer active but now houses a museum to 1950s actress Kay Kendall. Aside from her, Withernsea has a few other notable residents. It's the birthplace of jazz musician Kenny Baker and footballer Stuart Gray, and Dick Davis, the English-American poet, teacher and award-winning translator of Persian poetry, grew up in Withernsea during the 1950s. In more recent times, the Ruby Red Performers, a group of dancers who appeared on the 9th series of Britain's Got Talent in 2015, are also from Withernsea. Withernsea sits close to the line of the Prime Meridian, which crosses the coast to the northwest of the town. As such, there are a few references to it here, including the Meridian Centre. Once upon a time, you could catch a train to Withernsea from Hull. In Victorian times, Withernsea provided a cheap and convenient holiday for thousands of workers in the city. The railway line is now gone, but Withernsea is still thriving, and in the summer months it still welcomes lots of tourists. Let's go and check it out. We start our trip around Withernsea in the north of the town in a residential area full of terraced housing. There's not a lot up here, but there was a blue plaque of note to Captain Kenneth Banks. We will start as we mean to go on. Here's the Alma, or should I say the New Alma. This is one of Withernsea's many pubs. It's dog friendly, serves local real ales and has live entertainment. Withernsea is not short of a shop or two either. Most are in the town centre, which we'll come to in a while, but there are newsagents like Moore's dotted around the place. Nikki spotted this on the corner of Young Street. It's about a local cat of all things. Unusual to say the least. Now, let's go and see that sea again. We emerge from Young Street onto the North Promenade and we're greeted with the North Sea. Doesn't this just look wonderful? The walk will now follow the promenade almost to its very end. Withernsea has a blue flag beach, one of 61 in England. The blue flag is a certification provided for beaches as an indication of their high environmental and quality standards. Basically, it's good. Finding something with Withernsea on it for the thumbnail for this video was quite easy, and it was even better when there was this handy mural saying "Welcome to Withernsea" along the promenade. Also on the front we have Withernsea's lifeguard station. In all, the town has 5 emergency service stations, and this walk should pass them all except one. It's not long before we come across a piece of interesting local history. Here we have the story of the Sister Kirks, 2 former churches which are no longer here. Let's read a bit about them. So this is a little bit long for me to do this with a voiceover, so I'll have to read it to you. Legend tells of 2 sisters building separate churches after arguing over the style of a jointly funded church. One wanted a spire, the other a tower. These 2 buildings became known as the Sister Kirks. The sea eventually claimed both of the churches, eroding the Church of St Mary the Virgin, Withernsea, in around 1444, and St Peter's Church, Oathorn, between 1786 and 1824. Stones from the churches were reused in the building of St Nicholas Church, Withernsea, and St Mary the Virgin at Rimswell. Human remains found on the beach from St Peter's were reinterred at Rimswell. Now, St Nicholas Church, that's on our route. We'll catch that a little bit later on. Where there's a high number of people, you can always guarantee there will be a need for public toilets. This block here is right on the promenade, and there's a second one to see later. Now this map was interesting. Last week we discussed coastal erosion on the Holderness Coast and how some villages were lost to the sea. One of them was the original Withernsea village in the 1400s. The modern Withernsea has sea defences as well as a wide promenade. It reaches north and south from the central pier towers, the historic entrance to Withernsea's pier, originally built in 1877. Due to several impacts by local ships, the pier was removed in stages, the last being in 1903. There are other things of note on the promenade though, like for example this iron beacon. There's also some sculptures as well, which are part of the Withernsea Fish Trail, initiated in 2015 by students from Withernsea High School. This crab was made by Emma Stottart in 2020. Then we have an 11-foot high wave sculpture. This was designed to celebrate Withernsea's fishing heritage. It was created by Home Firth-based sculptor David Main, and it's called Beneath the Waves. Next to this, there's a board which details the fishing history of the town. Fishing is still a local industry, but these days Withernsea's fishermen only catch shellfish. So according to that information board, the fishermen here in Withernsea these days only catch shellfish. We've all done that at the sea, haven't we, Nikki? Caught crabs in little rock pools, haven't we? We've all done that.
Probably.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah,
come on, admit it, you know you have. I know I have. I've often caught crabs in little rock pools.
That could have serious connotations.
How, in what way? In what way?
Turn the camera off and I'll tell you.
I'm confused. Now, it may have been the late June sunshine, but initially I thought this said bowling club. However, this is the Withernsea Boating Club, which describes itself as a scenic venue. And that's hardly surprising when you consider it overlooks the sea. There's more than a couple of boats in the adjoining yard, by the way. I wonder how many of these take to the waves on the regular. Next we have the lifeboat station. Withernsea's lifeboat is a Henley D class which has been here for some 50 years. On 8 separate occasions, the crew have been recognised by the RNLI for their gallantry since the opening of the station in 1974. After this, once again gorgeous shot of Withernsea's beach, we're heading into the town to see what else it has to offer. After a walk down South Cliff Road, which by the way has the best chippy in Withernsea bar none, and I speak from experience, we're on to the A1033, better known as Queen Street. If you keep walking, you'll eventually hit a roundabout where the road then continues to Holham, passing Holham Airfield on the way. It's at that roundabout we find the Withernsea branch of Tesco. So Nikki's just made use of the Tesco for some plasters?
Yeah, and then a isotonic drink to keep me going.
Yeah, it's about 18 degrees according to the
Behind us.
yeah, sign behind us.
Yeah, it's like,
Oh yeah, up there. Yeah,
I think it's lying.
I think it's line. I think it's line. I think it's more like about 24 at the moment. So yeah, running repairs and then we'll carry on. Our route will now take a much more residential turn. We've seen what the promenade looks like, but the average tourist might not know what the rest of Withernsea looks like to the locals. As such, this footpath alongside Tesco will take us to one of those residential areas. Incidentally, it runs past a small caravan site. If you're thinking there's a few of those here, well, you're absolutely right. So it's certainly not typical of the whole town, and there are loads of streets we didn't walk down. However, hopefully that's shown you that a seaside resort is much more than just its seafront. So the point to coming through all these residential areas is because this will take us towards the church. It was the easiest route I could plan, so I could catch that without doubling back on myself. I think Nikki's getting a little bit tired.
Yeah, I'm just a bit concerned about your definition of easy.
At least it's flat. Hey, at least it's flat. Yes, there's no hills here. It's certainly not a hilly place, Withernsea. The church is off Park Avenue, and at the end of that road we find this small play area. This is the Millennium Green play area. Once upon a time, this would have been part of a railway line. When the old village of Withernsea was lost to the sea, so was the original parish church. Both a new village and church were built on higher ground and further inland in 1448. This is said church. Like its medieval predecessor, St Nicholas has battled strong coastal weather, and in 1609 during a storm, it lost its roof and fell into disrepair, becoming a ruin for over 200 years. That was until Owthorne's church was lost to the sea in 1816, and that resulted in a major restoration appeal to rebuild and repair St Nicholas, but as of 2014, it was closed for worship once again. It's been managed by the church's Conservation Trust since 2019. You can access the churchyard, but currently it's closed to the public whilst major repair and conservation work takes place. This used to be the church hall. However, a local man who spoke to us here said that after closing due to COVID, it's now used by a karate club after it was sold for the minuscule price of £30,000. Buses, I hear you cry. What buses do I need? Well, if you want to visit Withernsea using them, you need numbers 70, 71, 72, 75, 129, 173 and X7. There's also a service to Hymers College. This massive building on the right had us thinking two words: Town Hall. However, it's the Withernsea Centre, which is a library and customer services centre. So initially I thought this was a war memorial, but it's actually not. This is an obelisk, or it's a lamp, sorry, not an obelisk, and it commemorates the Diamond Jubilee of Queen Victoria, 1837 to 1897, and I have Nikki to thank for that because I didn't spot that. Nikki stopped for a few moments to try out this bench under a wooden plaque for a Dr. David J. Young. I wonder if Young Street, close to where we began, bears any connection. This next building is the Meridian Centre, a former pub and nightclub now owned by Withernsea Town Council. It's used as a community centre and performing arts venue. It even includes a cinema. Over the road, we've got an establishment that everybody loves. These are some of Withernsea's amusements, a staple of the British seaside. No surprise then, it was at this point that Nikki left me to it. I tell you, the wife can't resist a two-piece slot. I carried on, and much like Hometon last week, Withernsea were on the ball with marking the Platinum Jubilee. Check out this little garden. Now, speaking of gardens, here we have Withernsea's Sunken Valley Gardens. This is a former mere, located just off the central promenade by the pier towers, and it's surrounded by grass banks. Boasting a large, purpose-built stage with a canopy, the gardens are often the focal point and central arena for musical and family events. During the summer months, events of all kinds are held right here. The gardens can be hired too by anyone wishing to host an event. With a large paved area and seating facing the stage and a large lawn and viewing area, there's space for everyone to enjoy. This brings us to the town centre. Get ready for plenty of shops, more amusement arcades and loads of pubs and restaurants. Some say Withernsea has declined in recent times, but personally, I disagree. Yes, it's summer and yes, there's holidaymakers around, but you could count the number of boarded up shops here on one hand. This is the Pier Hotel, a lively pub and hotel close to the seafront. Next we have the Old Boat Shed. Yes, this was closed, but when it's open it's a real ale macro bar and it's set in the old lifeboat station built in 1881, which still retains some of its original features. Now of course I can't catch every single shop going, and it's not my intention to anyway, because the video would be like 2 or 3 hours long if I tried to do that. It's just giving you a general flavour of what's here, and especially with it being summertime there's quite a lot of people around as well, so I don't really want to stand in crowded places. So the next place to go is back down the main street here past the Butterfly pub, which you can see there, and along the main sort of shopping street, which is this one here, and then we're heading for the market. We're about to go up Station Road, so named because Withernsea used to have a station on the Hull and Holderness Railway. Here's another of the local supermarkets. If you don't like Tesco, you can try Aldi. This area is all about public services, and it's where a convalescent house once stood. Here's Withernsea's hospital, which used to have an accident and emergency department. These days, it's just a community hospital, and Hull is the closest place now for an A&E. Oh look, here's where the local plod are based. This is Withernsea's police station. You'll also want to come down here if you're after the leisure centre. This is located directly opposite Withernsea's outdoor market. It sports a 25-metre swimming pool as well as a health and fitness suite. This area was all to do with Withernsea Station in the mid-19th century. It closed in 1964, and all that remains of the line now is a footpath beyond this building next to the Millennium Green play area. It's time to go back to the main town centre via Piggy Lane, and on the way we pass Lund's Garden Centre. I couldn't find a lot about this, but it added a nice splash of colour to the walk. It's certainly okay when it comes to public conveniences here in Withernsea. You have the block on the front, and also on Piggy Lane there's another block of toilets, so you're never without a public toilet here in this town. Now the next major landmark we're heading for is perhaps one of Withernsea's biggest, and that would be the lighthouse. Let's go and find that next. Now to go up Hull Road, and on the corner we have the Spread Eagle. It's a popular locals pub this, and it's apparently good for locally sourced food. Live entertainment is also popular here at weekends. Next is Withernsea's Methodist Chapel, also on Hull Road. This is one of 14 churches in the South Holderness Methodist Circuit. Services are held here every Sunday at 10:30 AM and 6:30 PM. We also pass this dental surgery as well. Over the road, we have Withernsea's most prominent landmark, the lighthouse. Withernsea Lighthouse is an inland lighthouse standing 127 feet high. It took 18 months to build between the years of 1892 and 1894. It switched its light off for the final time in 1976. You might wonder why it's so far inland, some 400 metres in fact. At the time it was built, there was nothing between it and the sea but sand dunes. Fear of coastal erosion led to it being positioned well back. It was formerly owned and run by Trinity House of London, and it's now used as a museum. The base of the lighthouse features RNLI and HM Coast Guard exhibits with models and old photographs. The local history room has Victorian and Edwardian photos of the town, including the pier and railway, and there's also a memorial to Kay Kendall, who was a 1950s film star and was born in the town. Let's move on again. This next building, all boarded up, was part of Withernsea's old primary school before the new one, which we'll come across shortly, was constructed. As well as the main church, there's another to talk about in the town. It's St Matthew's Church, which was in the news recently after thieves stole its bell. I wonder if it was ever found. Turning left, we're on a football pitch. This is where Withernsea AFC play in the East Riding County League. They're one of the biggest teams in the area with 2 senior teams and several junior sides. You know how normally a church spire is what dominates the landscape around a village? Well, here in Withernsea, it's not a church spire, it is 100% the lighthouse. You can see this for quite a way around. It's certainly Withernsea's biggest and probably most well-known landmark, I would say. Just a bit further past the lighthouse, there's a property which again makes reference to Kay Kendall in the way of a blue plaque on its wall. One would assume this was her house. It's education to finish the main walk around with. Withernsea High School is the main secondary provider and it has a technology college. The high school was refurbished in 2015. Next door, there's the new primary school, but this is no ordinary school. It serves both the town and surrounding villages of Withernsea, making it one of the largest primary schools in the East Riding of Yorkshire. Okay, I'm almost all the way around the route. All I've got to do really now is take the last few paces up to the car and hop in it and move on to the next one. Although I ought to go and find my wife, really. Probably still somewhere in the slots. Here comes today's picture bit. Okay, so I've just come past the Withernsea ambulance station, which is just to the right there. You can see the lighthouse in the distance. Ambulance station is just there at the end of these houses. And that's it. That's Withernsea for you. Quite a long walk, that. Longer than I thought it was going to be. And it's a lovely East Yorkshire town, isn't it? A lovely seaside resort. And it just, I don't know why people don't come to these coastal towns more these days. I mean, a lot of people prefer to have holidays abroad and things like that, but we've seen it, haven't we? We've seen coastal places before on this channel, and you just think to yourself, what's the point in going somewhere like Spain or Greece or Italy or France or wherever, you know, for a holiday, when you can just come here and have, you know, just as much fun. Okay, the weather's not always great. It's great when it is like this, you know, when it's a nice blue sky and the sun is shining. It's wonderful. And I know it rains a little bit from time to time here in the UK, but you know, you can have just as much fun on holiday in a place like this as you can in Europe or elsewhere in the world. Time for me to move on to somewhere else in this fantastic country. I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot. This has been the parish of Withernsea, and I'm out.